When I saw the drunk young woman insulting a customer and vomiting on his jacket at Neon Night's bar, I knew trouble was coming. The man was furious and ready to attack her. As a bartender, I'd seen this scenario play out badly before, so I stepped in to protect her even though she'd been rude to me all night. You won't believe what happened next. I never expected Olivia to show up at my apartment the next morning in a black limousine with enough money to change everything for me and my pregnant girlfriend Nina. Sometimes doing the right thing brings rewards we never imagined possible. Hi everyone, welcome to Life's Changing Stories. Now let's dive into today's story. The tiny studio apartment that Jake Miller shared with his pregnant girlfriend Nina felt smaller every day as they tried to squeeze a crib, changing table, and baby supplies into the 400 square feet they could barely afford in downtown Denver. At 24, Jake had been forced to drop out of the University of Colorado 2 years earlier when his parents cut off financial support after constantly criticizing his life choices and making him feel like a failure who would never amount to anything worthwhile. The $15,000 he'd saved working since age 15 had lasted exactly 18 months before forcing him to choose between continuing his business degree and keeping a roof over his head. Jake's current job, bartending at Neon Nights, one of Denver's busiest nightlife spots, paid better than his previous minimum wage positions, but it still wasn't enough to support a growing family while saving for Nina's upcoming maternity leave and the thousands of dollars in medical bills that would come with their baby's birth. Every night, Jake watched wealthy customers spend more on drinks than he made in a week, tipping generously while he smiled and served them, secretly calculating how many extra shifts he'd need to work just to buy diapers and formula. Nina, now 6 months pregnant with their first child, had been the bright spot in Jake's life since they met in their sophomore year English literature class, falling instantly in love over discussions about Hemingway and dreams of traveling the world together. When she unexpectedly became pregnant, Jake insisted they keep the baby, promising to work as many hours as necessary to provide the kind of loving, stable home that both of them had craved during their own difficult childhoods. They spent every free moment transforming their tiny apartment into a nursery, painting walls and assembling furniture with the excitement of young parents who refused to let financial stress diminish their joy. Tonight, after spending the afternoon installing baby-proofing latches and organizing tiny clothes, Jake headed to Neon Nights for another long shift, wondering how much longer they could maintain this exhausting pace of working multiple jobs while preparing for parenthood. He had no idea that this seemingly ordinary Friday evening would bring an encounter that would test his character and ultimately transform their lives in ways he could never have imagined possible. Jake Miller stood behind the polished bar at Neon Nights, wiping down glasses and preparing for what looked like another busy Friday night in downtown Denver. At 24, he had been working as a bartender for 2 years since dropping out of the University of Colorado due to financial difficulties and family pressures that had made continuing his education impossible. Jake's parents had kicked him out at 17 after years of constant criticism and verbal abuse that left him feeling worthless and unwanted. He had saved money since age 15, working after school and weekends to fund his dream of studying business and eventually opening his own restaurant. After 2 years of college, financial reality forced him to choose between education and survival. During his time at university, Jake had met Nina, a beautiful and intelligent English major who became the love of his life. They fell for each other instantly, bonding over their shared experiences of difficult family backgrounds and dreams of creating something better for themselves. After months of dating, Nina moved into Jake's small apartment, and their relationship deepened into a partnership built on mutual support and genuine affection. 6 months ago, Nina had become pregnant unexpectedly. While the news was initially overwhelming, given their financial situation, Jake insisted they keep the baby and promised to work whatever jobs necessary to provide for their growing family. He had quit his lower-paying restaurant job and secured the bartending position at Neon Nights, which offered better tips and more flexible hours. Jake's friendly personality and genuine interest in people made him popular with customers. Many regulars would specifically request his section because he was an excellent listener who offered thoughtful advice without judgment. His tips were consistently above average, and his managers appreciated his reliability and positive attitude. Jake and Nina had been working tirelessly to prepare for their baby's arrival, spending every free moment transforming their tiny apartment into a nursery. They painted walls, assembled furniture, and organized baby clothes with the excitement of young parents determined to create a loving home despite their financial limitations. On this particular Friday evening, after spending the afternoon installing safety locks and organizing the nursery, Jake arrived at Neon Nights for what he expected to be another routine shift, serving drinks to Denver's nightlife crowd. Around 9 p.m., a young woman in her early 20s entered the bar and immediately caught Jake's attention. Olivia appeared to be upset, with red eyes that suggested she had been crying and an agitated demeanor that indicated she was going through some kind of personal crisis. She approached the bar and demanded tequila shots, her voice carrying an edge of desperation that Jake recognized from other customers who used alcohol to cope with emotional pain. Jake poured her first shot, observing her behavior carefully as she drank it quickly and immediately requested another. "Rough day?" Jake asked sympathetically, sliding a second shot across the bar. Olivia gulped the tequila and glared at him. "You could say that. I'm having trouble with him, and I hate him so much right now." Jake didn't pry into the details, but he could see that Olivia was using alcohol to numb whatever emotional pain she was experiencing. She continued drinking rapidly, becoming increasingly intoxicated and demanding more shots despite Jake's growing concern about her condition. "Maybe you should slow down a bit," Jake suggested gently. "Tequila hits hard when you're upset." "Don't tell me what to do," Olivia snapped. "Just keep the drinks coming." Against his better judgment, Jake served her several more shots, watching as she became increasingly drunk and belligerent. Her behavior was becoming disruptive, but Jake tried to monitor the situation while serving other customers. About 20 minutes later, a man approached Olivia at the bar and attempted to start a conversation. Jake couldn't hear the initial exchange, but it quickly escalated into a heated argument that drew the attention of nearby customers. Olivia, now extremely intoxicated, insulted the man's mother in crude terms and then proceeded to vomit directly onto his expensive leather jacket. Instead of being embarrassed or apologetic, she burst into drunken laughter, clearly finding the situation hilarious in her inebriated state. The man was furious, his face red with rage as he stared at his ruined jacket. "You disgust me," he snarled. "I'm going to teach you a lesson you'll never forget." Jake immediately recognized the danger of the situation. The man was significantly larger than Olivia, who was too drunk to defend herself or even fully comprehend the threat she was facing. Without hesitation, Jake vaulted over the bar and positioned himself between the angry customer and Olivia. "That's enough," Jake said firmly, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to handling difficult situations. "Fighting customers is against bar policy, and I can't let you lay hands on her." The man glared at Jake, his fists clenched with anger. "Did you see what this crazy girl did to my jacket? She needs to learn some respect." "I understand you're upset," Jake replied calmly, "but she's clearly had too much to drink and doesn't know what she's doing. The best thing for everyone is if you walk away and pretend this never happened. For a tense moment, it seemed like the man might try to fight both Jake and Olivia. Other customers had stopped their conversations to watch the confrontation, and Jake could feel the weight of their attention as he stood his ground. Finally, the man stepped back, pointing an angry finger at Olivia. "Today's your lucky day," he growled before storming out of the bar. Olivia, who had been swaying unsteadily during the confrontation, suddenly seemed to realize what had almost happened. "Thank you," she said, her words slurred but sincere. "I'm sorry I was such an asshole earlier." Jake smiled broadly, his relief evident. "Don't worry about it, everyone has bad days." "I was scared he was going to hit me," Olivia admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't know why I said those things to him." "You're safe now," Jake assured her. "My name's Jake, by the way. My friends call me Jay." "I'm Olivia," she replied, extending an unsteady hand. "Thank you for protecting me." Jake looked around the bar, noting that Olivia was clearly too intoxicated to safely get home alone. "Did you come here with someone? You're not really in shape to drive or walk home by yourself." Olivia checked her phone and smiled. "My ride should be here soon." As if on cue, her phone chimed with a text message. Perfect timing. She finished her last shot, grabbed her purse, and said goodbye to Jake. He watched carefully as she made her way toward the exit, ensuring she got out of the bar safely after the confrontation. The rest of Jake's shift passed without incident, but he couldn't stop thinking about the encounter with Olivia and how quickly the situation could have turned violent if he hadn't intervened. The next morning, Jake was resting in his apartment while Nina was at her part-time job at a local bookstore. He was still tired from the long night at the bar and was looking forward to a quiet morning when he heard an unexpected knock at his door. Jake grudgingly got up and opened the door to find a well-dressed man in a black suit standing in the hallway. "Mr. Jake Miller?" the man asked politely. "Yes, that's me," Jake replied, confused by the formal address. "I'm here on behalf of my employer, who would like to speak with you. She's waiting outside in the car." Jake looked past the man and saw a sleek black limousine parked outside his building, completely out of place in his modest neighborhood. "I'm sorry, but I think there's been some mistake," Jake said. "I don't know anyone who owns a limousine." "There's no mistake, sir. She specifically asked for you." Jake asked for a moment to change into appropriate clothes, his mind racing with possibilities about who could want to see him. He had no wealthy friends or business connections that would explain a limousine visit. When Jake entered the limousine, he was shocked to find Olivia sitting inside, looking completely different from the drunk, distressed young woman he had met the night before. She was impeccably dressed, perfectly groomed, and carried herself with a confidence and sophistication that suggested significant wealth and social status. "Good morning, Jake," Olivia said warmly, smiling at his obvious surprise. "Olivia, I can't believe it's you. You look incredible." "Finding you wasn't difficult in a town like Denver," she explained. "I just asked the right people at the right places." Jake was still processing the transformation from the drunk, vulnerable woman he had protected to this obviously wealthy and composed person sitting across from him. "I came to thank you properly for last night," Olivia continued. "I was in a terrible mood because of a fight with my father, and I probably acted like a complete asshole. But you protected me when that man wanted to hurt me, even though I had been rude to you." Olivia handed Jake a small brown envelope. "Please take this. Consider it my materialistic way of saying thank you." Jake opened the envelope and immediately dropped it in shock. Inside was several $1,000s in cash, more money than he had ever seen at one time. "I can't accept this," Jake stammered, his eyes filling with tears. "It's too much." "It's just a girl showing her appreciation," Olivia replied, simply. "You risked your safety to protect a stranger, and that kind of character deserves to be rewarded." Jake was overwhelmed with gratitude, thinking about Nina, their unborn baby, and all the financial stress that this unexpected gift could alleviate. "Thank you," he whispered, unable to find adequate words to express his emotions. Olivia smiled and prepared to leave. "I hope you have a wonderful day, Jake. Use the money wisely." Even after the limousine drove away, Jake stood outside his building in disbelief, holding the envelope and trying to process what had just happened. He immediately called Nina at work and told her everything about the previous night's encounter and the morning's surprise visit. Nina rushed home early, and when she saw the money, she burst into tears of relief and joy. The unexpected windfall allowed Jake and Nina to move into a larger, more comfortable apartment suitable for raising a baby. They also used part of the money to start the online business they had always dreamed of launching, a specialty coffee subscription service that combined Jake's knowledge of beverages with Nina's marketing skills. Within 6 months, their business was profitable enough to allow Jake to reduce his bartending hours and spend more time with Nina and their newborn daughter. The financial security provided by Olivia's gift had given them the foundation to build the life they had always wanted. Jake never forgot the lesson that his encounter with Olivia had taught him, that acts of kindness performed without expectation of reward often return to us in ways we could never imagine. He had protected a stranger simply because it was the right thing to do, never dreaming that his compassion would transform his family's entire future. Years later, when their business had grown into a successful company, employing dozens of people, Jake would tell the story of that night at Neon Nights as a reminder that character matters more than circumstances, and that treating others with dignity and respect creates opportunities that money alone cannot buy. Olivia had recognized something special in Jake's willingness to protect her despite her poor behavior, and her gratitude had changed the trajectory of his life. The envelope of cash had been life-changing, but the real gift was the validation that doing the right thing, even when it's difficult or dangerous, always matters. Jake's simple act of courage had protected a vulnerable person and earned him a reward that provided the financial foundation for everything he and Nina built together. Their love story became a business success story, all because a young bartender chose to stand up for what was right when it would have been easier to look the other way. The lesson Jake learned that night was that we never know who we're really helping when we choose compassion over convenience, courage over comfort, and kindness over indifference. Sometimes the people who seem to need us the most are actually the ones with the power to change our lives forever. Olivia's identity remained a mystery. Jake never learned who she really was or why she had the resources to give away thousands of dollars as a simple thank you. But her generosity had proven that wealth used wisely can create opportunities for others to build better lives and contribute positively to their communities. Jake and Nina's coffee business eventually expanded beyond online sales to include a physical cafe that became a gathering place for young entrepreneurs and artists in Denver. They created jobs, supported local suppliers, and built the kind of community-focused business that reflected their values of hard work, integrity, and mutual support. The money Olivia had given them was eventually repaid many times over through the success of their business and the positive impact they created in their community. But Jake never forgot that it all started with a choice to protect someone who needed help, regardless of how she had treated him earlier in the evening. The story of Jake and Olivia became a reminder that character is revealed not in how we treat people who can help us, but in how we treat people who cannot. Jake's decision to protect a drunk, rude stranger had demonstrated the kind of integrity that wealthy, successful people recognize and reward. In the end, Jake's transformation from struggling bartender to successful businessman proved that opportunities often come disguised as moral tests, and that the choices we make when no one is watching or when everyone is watching, determine the kind of life we ultimately create for ourselves and the people we love. We hope you enjoyed today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications.